Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Leviticus chapter 19, the Lord really brings home exactly what it means to be holy. And time again, the section that we're reading, where we have this great call to be holy as the Lord our God is holy. First Peter brings this out again for the New Testament believers, but the idea there was that God's people ought to reflect God's character and his holiness. And in Leviticus chapter 19, we get a picture of what that means. Perhaps sometimes we might think that holiness is a very personal and private matter. We might think that a person who lives a holy life is a person who perhaps engages in certain religious duties. Perhaps they go to church so many times during the month, or they say so many prayers during the day, or they read this much of their Bible over a certain period of time. And certainly all that plays a part in it, and all those things are very important and things that we should be involved in. But Leviticus chapter 19 teaches us that there's another aspect of holiness as well, and that is in our relationships, where we really show ourselves to be holy like our God is holy, is in our relationships. In verse 3, there's holiness towards in our relationship towards our parents. In verse 29, to the children, to God in verses 4 through 8, 6 through 28, and 3 through 31, to the poor and the stranger in verses 9 through 10, verse 15, and verses 33 through 34, to women in verses 20 through 22, to one's neighbor or kin, verses 11 through 18 and 35 through 36, to the aged in verse 32, to animals in verse 19, to the soil in verse 19, and then 23 through 25, and to the disabled in verse 14. So you can see a lot of relationships covered just in this one chapter. And again, it reiterates this idea that holiness is really demonstrated in the way that we treat others. It's in this chapter that we read that we ought to love our neighbor, and we ought to be caring for other people and being concerned about others. And so as we reflect on this, we could say that, yes, it is important to have a private life of faith in which we go to our closet and we pray to the Lord, and we get involved in various spiritual disciplines that help us out personally in drawing close to the Lord. But really where our holiness becomes evident to people around us is in our relationships. So perhaps it would be good for us today to think about our relationships. Think about how we treat children, our parents, how we interact with God, how we treat the poor and the stranger, how we treat perhaps people of the opposite sex, our neighbors, our close relatives, animals, even the land, and the disabled people who are perhaps not as well off as we are, the poor. How do we treat all these different types of people? And maybe we could go down the list and just think about each one and say, have I really shown love in this particular relationship? Have I really demonstrated the character of God in this particular relationship that I have? And it would be a good way to take inventory of our own expression of holiness. And it ought to be that we would be encouraged to all the more begin to demonstrate love, compassion, mercy, grace, benevolence, in all these different areas, so that God's character can shine through us, that his love can shine through us, and that we can really show ourselves to be in fellowship with God. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.